Hey guys, welcome back to the Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. Now today's episode, we are doing another fun ranking. Again, this is just the best way to kill the regular season time. It's the best way to kill the off-season time too when we do come to it. But today we're ranking the 5 greatest NBA sidekicks to championship dynasties sort of things that we've seen since the NBA-ABA merger. So that's about 1977 and onwards. So we're counting 80s dynasties, we're counting 90s dynasties, and so forth onwards. And I just want to quickly run through my criteria because I want to make this a fairly quick episode. And basically, let's run through the criteria, right? They're pretty basic points into what kind of makes you valid for this take. And then I'll quickly jump through my honourable mentions. I'm just going to be going through them like name by name. I'm not going to be putting too much of a description onto these guys, but definitely give them their respect by naming them in this conversation. Because the top 5 is pretty hard to pretty much solidify for a ranking like this. But we're only ranking pure sidekicks. Now, this could kind of get, jottled here and there, but my take on this is, okay, I'm going to throw out a all-time duo, maybe the most talented duo of all time, and the most complementary duo of all time, Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Neither of those guys validate for this list, purely because both of them alternated as 1As at a certain point of time in that Lakers Showtime dynasty. When I'm saying that, I mean, maybe for the first half a decade, 6-7 years, Kareem was obviously the 1A in that LA period of time. Obviously, I know Magic had the finals MVP in his rookie season, but regardless, Kareem was the most important player, most important piece of that team. But then it shifted towards Magic Johnson's reigns, even though Kareem was still on the roster because of how he aged into his late 30s. I'm not counting that because both of them alternated at 1As in specific points of time. That can kind of be argued with some duos I do have on this list, whether or not that actually that dynamic as the 1A, 1B, if that actually shifted during the tenure. I don't think so. So that's why I go with guys like that. And then again, post NBA ABA merger, we can't have the 60s Celtics here. Otherwise, like, Sam Jones won like 10 championships. John Havlicek won like 8 championships. Bob Cousy, like next to Bill Russell as the 1A sort of like dynasty piece. That can't be brought up in this discussion. Otherwise, it just makes the list too boring. And then you need to have multiple years of true championship success as the sidekick if you want to validate into this list for me. And then the second part, and like this is the most valuable part of being a literal sidekick, like, what do you want from a sidekick in today's modern NBA, but also just throughout history and in any sport? As the second option, you want to have a complementary skill set for your 1A. You want to alleviate their weaknesses and amplify their strengths. Complementary. So that involves, the bulk part of that is usually typically your versatility, your off-ball value, and just your defensive capabilities as well. Your ability to take on a defensive load when your 1A typically is more of an offensively taxing player. That factors. And this list isn't about just overall talent. I'm just going to hint off a little debate that gets brought up here, but between Kevin McHale and James Worthy, like that's a debate right there. In terms of McHale probably was the more talented player at his peak, but for me, James Worthy had more portable traits and he had an ability to actually affect any sort of offensive situation a bit more seamlessly within the offense than Kevin McHale did. So again, that's more of a structural take over just Kevin McHale's peak statistical argument there. Again, it's very subjective to what I'm taking at this point in time. And also, again, between McHale and Worthy, like I value longevity to a situation, especially when we are looking at how you construct dynasties in, an NBA context. So that longevity factors a lot too. I think Worthy did what he did for longer in a sidekick championship role than what Kevin McHale did, especially in those 2 first championships where Kevin McHale didn't really contribute too much in the postseason for those first 2. In the third one, he was absolutely magnificent. Not the same as Worthy's prolonged longevity in that star role. And then the last part I want to knock over is basically your ceiling raising predominantly. So how you affect other good talent around you. Again, we're assessing how you fit with other championship level talent around you. How can you amplify those guys without taking their shine away too much? Floor raising does factor into this. Floor raising is what you can do with lower talent around you, and when most of the responsibilities are literally placed onto you to do a large part of the work. Floor raising context, just to quickly give you an example, like Russell Westbrook, incredible floor raiser, what he could do with bad talent leading top 6 seeds, winning MVPs out there as well, because he could do so much literally by himself with that lone usage. But floor raising, so it does count here, your ability to actually manufacture points by yourself. Like, who doesn't want that as your sidekick option? But typically those responsibilities reside with your 1A option. So your ability to affect the game off ball and those ceiling raising traits are what I'm valuing the most. Now, let's get into our honourable mentions. So I got a list here, and these are the guys that missed the cut. And in no particular order, I had Kevin McHale, who was my toughest cut for sure. Like, and when we're talking about the peak that he hit, I think it was 1986. Like, it might be the best out of anyone that we actually have on this list when we are talking about in this sidekick era for these individual players. So Kevin McHale was one of my honorable mentions. Pau Gasol, Kyrie Irving, one championship. Again, like, these guys just didn't add the second title to their resume. But again, multiple finals appearances for Kyrie Irving in that sidekick option. Klay Thompson missed the cut. Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili both missed the cut too. John Stockton never won a title, but also the fact that him and Karl Malone, that dynamic was pretty... It jottled between here and there who we actually thought was the best player for that team. Obviously, when the Jazz were making finals, probably most likely just a clear consensus on Karl Malone being the best player. But before then, in the early 90s, John Stockton was absolutely marveling the league. So Stockton lands on this list. And then at number 8, a finals MVP. My 8th honorable mention is Joe Dumas, who missed the list on this one. Now, let's get straight into it. I'm going to knock these down. These 5 guys, my 5 greatest sidekicks of the modern NBA. We're starting at number 5, and I named Klay Thompson on my honorable mentions because I have Draymond Green, who kicks in here at number 5. Now, just if you guys want to get to know me, a big part of what I believe about the Warriors' dynasty success is literally Draymond Green's ability to stabilize their literal playbook on both ends of the floor. And when we're talking about ceiling and floor raising dynamics, like for Draymond, in terms of his ability to like uphold the systematic approach of the Warriors offense, that gives them their baseline floor to me. Also just the defensive playmaking, just blowing up plays. And then also just the on and off ball versatility and the different ways that he actually could impact the game. That gives him the ceiling raising traits, which I'm valuing the most. And with Draymond, the peak that we're taking as a sidekick is between 2015 to 2018. Again, 3 out of 4 of those years, they won a championship and they made the finals every single year in that dynamic. So in terms of just the championship and the team success, he experienced it all in that exact range. And then you also talk about the 2019 finals, but 2022 NBA championship. And he's still one of the top 3 defenders on the planet. And really for Draymond, just going to the traits that I'm valuing the most and what was the most valuable to the Warriors situation, we're going to be going into his passing gene. Now, when we're just talking about screening and just your basic, just Draymond's just basic, just general IQ and his ability to actually use his ball handling and use the gravity of Steph and actually be able to attack sagging big men with his handoff threat that he was able to throw at teams, the pick and pop threat that he used to be able to be in that 2016 era as well. And in terms of just the value that he was able to create the valuable offense on the perimeter, understanding that teams are going to sag off of him, that allows him to get Steph and Klay way more space and movement, brings bigs up to the level. And when bigs come up to the level in ball screens, that's when Steph Curry gets those runways towards the rim. He can generate some sort of rim pressure as well. And then when we go into the passing, it's the bullet reads, it's the precision hitting of those flares in all of their post-split and multi-outlet actions. Again, in these actions with the Warriors, you've got Steph and Klay running off of screens. You have the roll man attacking the rim so hard. So you have all these different outlets, and Draymond Green's ability to precisely hit the correct and most open read was absolutely superb. And it was why their offense was able to be so majorly complex and why they were like literally unguardable. Like when you have the base decision maker, that is the most important tree of the trunk there. And Draymond just played that role to perfection all the way through their 4 championships. And then we go into defensive excellence. We're talking about one of the GOATs. Like, he's the GOAT defender of our generation, to lay that out there. But he's also one of the GOATs at literally just blowing up actions before they even formulate. And it's really just because the timing of his positioning was something that we've really never seen before in terms of from an IQ understanding. Rotation speed, the accuracy as well. Again, he has plus mobility as an anchor because he is 6'5", 6'6", and just the accuracy of his rotations, his communication style, his leadership, the physical frame, and the absurd wingspan he was able to throw out. And that mix of strength in his base and then also just the wingspan length that allows him to disrupt passing outlets, but also disrupt shot releases and deny positioning, deny drives, and like physically wall off plays as well. It's just a really unique combination that really threw off so many defenses. We've seen him guard some of the best star guards on the planet in the postseason. We've seen him guard some of the best post bigs in the NBA in the playoffs. The guy is absolutely versatile to a T. And in terms of defensively, being able to work out in space, making plays uncomfortable, again, with the mobility for his size, and just the constant activity. Like, we give Dennis Rodman so many props for being one of the biggest hounds of all time and the value that you can actually throw. Like, again, another example, Andrew Nemhard in the playoffs last year. The entire series, full court ball pressure, again, from Aaron Nesmith too. That constantly wears down plays and increases their anxiety. And then when you get into late game punches as well, that is when that anxiety really starts to take over, and then you can have all these different mistakes that stars usually aren't prone to. But that only happens when you have this excessive work rate to constantly outwork players off ball all the time. And Draymond Green, in terms of just denying catches, denying positioning for post bigs, the amount of anxiety he causes with his hands poking balls free, it gets in your head. And Draymond Green was one of the absolute GOAT defenders in NBA history, top 10, no doubt, and probably the best defender of this era, considering the team success that he actually experienced. And then lastly, we'll go into the scoring peaks. I mean, this is a guy that could actually notch up the shot making on the top of the key when he needed to. This is a guy that actually could attack bigs in space occasionally. And when we talk about the sagging room as well, like obviously he used that and weaponized that extra space to throw in that handoff action as well for guys like Steph and Clay. But he could actually take players off the dribble, take bigs off the dribble with the extra room, and that extra room allows him to generate more power on his drives. Maybe he could bail out some sort of possessions that way. And then in terms of just cutting and rolling really hard off those Steph and Clay gravity actions, that was really valuable. And then just Draymond Green, just what he did in his entire career was absolutely art form. 2015 to 2018, in the regular season, just to throw out the stats to end the argument here, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 stocks on 52% effective field goal percentage. Now, I'm throwing out the stats last in the argument just because I know they're not going to get much love here. But that turned into 13 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists, nearly 3.5 stocks a game in the postseason. Again, one of the most valuable anchors on both ends of the floor that we've ever seen. One of the most unique players that we've actually ever seen in this league. He lands here as my 5th greatest sidekick of all time. Now, moving on. Number 4. Now, not a traditional sidekick here, but I have Dwayne Wade, who lands at number 4. And a few of you guys might be thinking he should be landing higher, but we are just looking at the 2011 to 2014 range of Dwayne Wade, not the years before that, when he was leading the league in scoring, when he was like winning finals MVPs by him, like with just Shaq. We're not zooming in onto that, but we're zooming in onto this 4-year range with the Heatles, 4 finals appearances, 2 championships. And the reason why Dwayne Wade lands here, and again, on my criteria, we talked about complementary skill sets. This, again, not traditional sidekick in that form. This is a guy who was a top 5 or 6 player in the NBA. And this is a guy that had to learn to coexist with the best player on the planet. And he did so successfully. Again, we're talking about like LeBron's arrival and Chris Bosh's arrivals. And his ability to actually translate his skill set and still be a really decent floor raiser, but also harness and tap into whatever ceiling raising traits he had. That's what made him successful. And in terms of Dwayne Wade, again, so ceiling raising aspects, not as largely magnified as these other guys, but he was able to still boost a team's floor, and he did it in a way that most can't in a sidekick role. He was able to float the offense, and in terms of the peak that he still hit in this 4-year range, in the 2011 finals, we know that finals run when LeBron was averaging like 17 a game, getting absolutely hounded by the Mavs small guards. Dwayne Wade in that series was still 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists on 58% effective field goal percentage. He was absolutely superb in that series. And obviously he was far from the most complementary talent, especially like after what we saw Kyrie do next to LeBron and what we saw Anthony Davis do next to LeBron. He was far from complementary in that standpoint. But the firepower that he did provide on his way to 2 championships in that 4-year span behind LeBron, that was enormous. And that's why he does land here at number 4. Again, we are talking about a guy that is a literal superstar in this league. Like, still knocking on the door of being a little megastar in the NBA in that top 5 zone. And that's why he lands here. Again, offensively, he had to shift his game, learning how to impact the game more as a secondary creator and as more of the outlet option in actions where he is like receiving the ball as the roller, making those 4 and 3 decisions, attacking the rim as a roll man with the amount of power that he still had behind him. He had to learn how to adapt his game as a cutter, still learn how to still apply hellacious transition athleticism when he could as well. So just milking those off-ball traits, that was really key for Dwayne Wade in the shift. And then again, defensively as well, we're still talking about one of the best wings on the planet. Obviously, still tremendous as a physical deterrent. And he's one of the best secondary rim protectors that we've ever seen. And this 4-year span was nothing short of that. And the tons of athleticism, the tons of strength that he was able to throw at teams as an isolation defender, where he could actually deny those isolation drives, force players into shot settling, or just letting the ball out towards another teammate. And then the speed and timing that he actually he's one of the best weak side defenders that we've seen of the early 2010s. It's because of the speed and timing that he had, like when he was throwing those post traps, when he was throwing those chase down possessions, those weak side rotations, that was all elite. In terms of raising a team's floor as well, like the ability to create and manufacture his own offense off the dribble, that was really vital for this team. Again, late getting bailout possessions. Again, we're talking about a perimeter creator who could get to the rim at will, who had a really nice pull-up game, really nice elevation. And this is a guy that used to average 30 points and 7 assists a game. So again, he brought that experience with him. And we're talking about a trio between LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. LeBron and Bosh never experienced championship success until then. I know LeBron got close, but ultimately Wade is the only one with championship experience. And he brought that to the Heatles, and that level of veteran experience in those winning scenarios, that had to be valuable in that locker room. The reason why he's not higher, again, he didn't amplify team offense. Obviously, he was limited with the off-ball skill set. And obviously, he did have some underwhelming series, and he doesn't provide, again, the complementary skills like other guys. But no doubt, Dwayne Wade was an absolute monster in this 4-year stretch. In the postseason, we're talking about 22-5-5 on 53% effective field goal percentage, very decently efficient. In the postseason, that translated to 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists on 49% effective field goal percentage. Again, a multi-time back-to-back champion and a 4-time finals appearance as the sidekick. That notes Dwayne Wade as our 4th best sidekick of the modern NBA. Now, moving in to number 3, we have James Worthy. Now, with James Worthy, I touched on him before against the McHale matchup before, but I just want to go into his resume just to start. And this, when we're talking about complementary and ceiling raising, this is where James Worthy starts to take the cake. But resume, 7-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA selections, 3 championships, a Finals MVP, one of the all-time great floor-raising ability as well in situations as a scorer. Like, we saw him drop 40 points in the 1988 Game 4 against the Pistons when Magic was out. So his ability to actually step up and offer those spurts and bursts of scoring power, that was mightily valuable to the Showtime Lakers. And then the off-ball offensive fuel as a ceiling raiser was what made him special, and what is absolutely what fueled, along with Magic Johnson's pace pushing, that absolutely fueled the dramatic success that Showtime Lakers dynasty experience. Now, with James Worthy, we just want to magnify into the actual scoring, because that's what made the Lakers so dominant in that dynasty era. And we're talking about one of these, just real powerful, strong athlete, guy with exceptional footwork, a guy with an insane driving burst, explosive first step down to a T. He had spin moves, long strides as well, so he could actually attack these suffocated paints really effectively. And then we're talking about a guy with, underrated all time, so much shot touch. We're talking about the mid-range, the pull-up game, the step-through finishes in that floater range, where floaters were considered inefficient. He was one of the best at actually making them as a forward. We're talking about high-releasing finishes over contests, one of the best at making these hook shots and drop-step looks. Absolutely superb finishing over defenders. He didn't even need to have to power through defenders, because he had the angle finishes and the English down to a T. And this is one of the better off-ball scorers that you'll find pre-21st century. Again, we're talking about one of the best movers off ball. Baseline cuts, post cuts, transition pressure was all time for this guy. In terms of being able to milk margins offensively, you're not going to find many better than James Worthy as a complementary player. And then again, complementary to Magic Johnson as the 1A when Worthy was a star. Your ability to actually, like Magic's best ability was to push the pace in transition and dart those reads on those outlet options. James Worthy's one of the best transition route runners that we've seen. And that was absolutely superb. And then in terms of just the pace that Magic wanted to play at all the time in that Showtime team, like the pace never dulled with James Worthy, even in the half court. We're talking about a really fast and decisive scorer, a guy and that completely played into the advantages of an era where the paint was so severely suffocated. I mean, you're playing fast, you're just taking care of just general pace and you're taking care of these extra margins that you can create when you are playing possibly 4-on-3 basketball in the open court. So again, just terrific with what the Lakers were able to do and extending their offensive advantage in such a major way. This is one of the best playoff performers as well of all time. There's a reason why his nickname is Big Game James. And we're talking about a guy, again, 9 playoff runs in his career. So I'm not cancelling out his last playoff run or his first one where, again, he wasn't at that all-star level. Just his playoff career in totality, 9 playoff runs. This guy averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists on 55% effective field goal percentage. Again, in the 80s, so that is really, really nice. There's a guy who literally picked up a finals MVP in the 1988 finals in a Game 7 series against the Pistons where he averaged 22, 7, and 4. And in Game 7 of that series, he had these infamous Game 7 triple-double. One of 3 players to ever do that, triple-double in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. 36 points, 16 rebounds, and 10 assists on 15 of 22 from the field. One of the most complete scorers for his time, one of the most confident players that we saw in that entire just 80s decade. And that's why James Worthy, for me, lands here as the 3rd greatest sidekick, like pure sidekick in NBA history since the modern NBA-ABA merger. The number 2. A lot of people probably think this guy should be number 1, and he's the most talented guy on this list. And I think you guys know who it is from what I said before, but it is Kobe Bryant. Now, when I said duos can't alternate between 1As, like with Magic and Kareem, where Kareem was the 1A and then shifted to Magic, I don't think that happened between Kobe and Shaq. Even in 2004, where Kobe was putting up these huge numbers, Shaq was always the most important, impactful, and most efficient player for that team, even in the 2004 finals. He was just the better player, in my opinion, still at that point in time. Kobe was still immature. He was growing out his skill set. He was growing out the audacity, which we know and love him for. But he harnessed that a little bit better towards the late 2000s, in my opinion. And I think what Shaq still did in 2003 and 2004, even though he was overweight, even though he didn't take care of his body, in the postseason, he was the biggest matchup problem in the NBA still. And teams still didn't really know how to fully delve into stopping him. So I still think Shaq was always the 1A option in LA. This is where my argument comes from by putting Kobe on this list. But there's a reason why Kobe is here though anyways, and there's a reason why he's 2nd and not number 1, but there is still a reason why he's above all these other guys. Now, again, longevity is also on his side compared to guys like Dwayne Wade, but this guy was off the charts talented. Especially by the time Shaq and Kobe split, like in 2003 and 2004, yes, he was jacking up shots, didn't really have much offensive maturity to his game, but this guy was off the charts talented, off the charts already developed at that time. We're talking about a guy who, with Shaq, this is just with Shaq, and this is just as a sidekick. This is a 1B. Your 2nd option through this era, 3 top 5 MVP finishes, 3 All-NBA first team selections, and 2 top 5 DPOY selections in this time. Absolutely unbelievably talented. One of the probably top 5 player in the league at maybe 2003, 2002, around that time. And again, when we talk about complementary skill sets, yes, in terms of the maturity, that drags him back a little bit. But in terms of just as a pairing with Shaq, this might be the most glamorous duo of all time, behind Magic and Kareem. Again, obvious ball handling fit when we talk about Shaq as a post-centric guy. Elite defensive athlete, elite motor next to Shaq, who was more of just a stout physical rim protector who didn't have the same level of urgency defensively. Having a high motor defensive playmaker on the perimeter was absolutely huge for LA. And then Kobe as well, offensively, he just gave them so much bailout offensive juice, especially in scenarios where Shaq had to go to the bench as well. Like, he just had the shot-making audacity, the shot creation audacity, and the diversity of the shot-making piece. Because he could literally get to the rim, he could make shots, and he had the audacity to take whatever shots he wanted to, and he could actually do it relatively decently as well. So he was an absolute threat from everyone on the floor. That was complementary to a guy that literally is just post-centric. And again, when we talk about as an isolation creator, just to have the diversity of shot creation tools with you, like, again, he still had the footwork, he still had the agility, an absolute acrobatic athlete as well. And he was just the perfect complement to what Shaq could do out of the post. Off ball, underrated fit. Attack, he like, when we talk about, and like when you go and watch like these early 2000s Lakers, defense is completely tilted towards Shaq out of the post. And when you have an absurd athlete on your weak side, a guy who would relentlessly just attack closeouts like an absolute freak against, like, with Shaq's gravity as well, just played so much into what LA could do successfully. Actually was a decent passer within the post as well. So you can actually reward Shaq on those dump offs when Kobe finally broke the defense in half. And then we're talking about, again, audacious scoring threat. And there's actually value in your ability to be literally just have so much audacity in the shots that you take. This actually played into, for the Lakers, and alleviated a lot of the pressure that Shaq sometimes did actually take on out of the post. Again, we're talking about a guy that got doubled and tripled all the time in Shaq out of the post. Kobe's ability to like just literally just threaten the defense continuously, just actually put shots up that were actually damaging over time. That just threatened defenses so much where there wasn't a proper way you could actually guard LA, especially with Kobe on the weak side and Shaq being such a great post passer at the time. And that did take away a lot of the defensive gravity that Shaq had to take on in certain spurts. And so that dynamic was absolutely beautiful. And then we're talking about the defensive peak of Kobe Bryant's career. Full motor engaged at this point in time. Ball pressure spiked to 100 at this point in time too. Lateral quickness, lateral abilities, just vertical abilities. Just as an athlete, this is where he peaked because he was younger and he was able to put more attention to the defense. And then in terms of just defensive playmaking, he might be one of the most talented perimeter guards of the 21st century. Disrupting handle pockets, disrupting passing lanes. Absolutely absurd. The mindset, though, was the only thing I would say is why Kobe wasn't number one on this list, and also just the longevity of their success. I know 3 championships is absolutely absurd. The guy that you guys know who is number one obviously doubled that. But the mindset for Kobe was also the drawback in terms of the fit. This is a guy that also tried to take too much control during the later portions of their pairing with Shaq. And to me, it's a combination of Kobe trying to take too much responsibility, but then also Shaq just not taking care of himself as well. It was a two-pronged approach as to what led to their downfall. Because otherwise, this duo could have won 4 to 5 championships absolutely effortlessly if they really wanted to. And I think obviously that dynamic obviously just deprived at least another title from entering LA. And that inability to coincide throughout a prolonged period of time next to Shaq. That is why I do have to deprive Kobe of the number one spot here. But again, second best sidekick of all time. And we're not even looking into what Kobe was as a 1A option. This is why, to me, he's the sixth greatest player in NBA history. Is because what he's done in his entire career. And again, zooming into the three-peat playoffs. Like, this guy throughout the postseason, when they won 3 in a row, this guy averaged 25 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, nearly 3 stocks. And that is your sidekick. And this is in the early 2000s. So just instrumental value. And the only other knock that I'll throw at Kobe is also that he just never hit 50% effective field goal percentage as a scorer. So he was relatively inefficient. There was no regular season or postseason stretch with Shaq that he actually hit 50% or more effective field goal percentage. But in saying that, in terms of just the highs that this guy hit, maybe there probably hasn't been any sidekick that's actually leveled up to what Kobe did. And in 2003, we're talking about a second option averaging 37 and 6. If you can even call him a second option at that point in time. He was third for MVP that year too. I'm only just saying I think Shaq was more valuable and was more of a matchup problem and more important to the Lakers' success. But Kobe Bryant was absolutely lethal at that time, and he's the second greatest sidekick in NBA history. Now, number one, you guys know who it is. It's pretty obvious. I think it's undeniable too. I actually don't think anyone can make any case against him. It's Scottie Pippen, clearly the greatest sidekick of all time. Now, just the overview of Scottie as a sidekick, literally the perfected resume in this role. He never stepped on toes on anyone on the court, and he's a top 3 most versatile player in NBA history, full stop. Maybe Larry Bird's number 1. I don't know, maybe you want to throw on LeBron James. Scottie Pippen to me might be third on that list. And he proved as well, like, again, we're not just talking about ceiling raising traits that you could provide to your 1A. This is a guy that when Jordan stepped off the court, he led the Bulls, and you guys have heard this multiple times, especially LeBron James fans throwing this out there, but this guy literally led a 55-win team without Michael Jordan and was the 3rd MVP candidate that season, 4th for Defensive Player of the Year. NBA first team, all defense first team. This is a guy that was an exceptional talent. He was just in a backseat role, but he knew how to play that backseat role better than anyone in NBA history, in my opinion. His resume: 7 All-Stars, 7 All-NBAs, 10 all-defensive teams. Again, that shows the amount of effort that he put on that end of the floor. That is valuable. 6 championships, again, doubled up on what Kobe did. 5 top 5 DPOY finishes. 5 times he was a top 5 regular season defender. He was probably a top 5 defender in this jacked defensive 90s period of time with all these stout rim protectors. And his individual peak season, I just want to throw this out there. So the actual highs that Scottie got to as a player doesn't get enough love. And the stats don't even do him enough justice for just how impactful and diverse his impact was. And there's a reason why Phil Jackson absolutely loved and adored having Scottie on the team. But in this 2-year stretch between the 1994 and the 1995 season, again, Jordan played 17 games in that comeback year, and then obviously when the Bulls won 55 games the year before. In that 2-year stretch, this is Scottie's absolute peak. 22 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 stocks on 52% effective field goal percentage. And when we go into just versatile skill sets, like I don't even need to make the argument for too long. Versatile skill sets, top 3 all time. In terms of just complementary skills, again, like he literally had the ultimate do-it-all skill set, the ultimate do-it-all frame as a wing, and the ultimate do-it-all adaptable mindset as a sidekick. Again, one of the GOAT passing forwards in NBA history for their triangle offense, in transition as well. Don't even need to go into it. One of the greatest passing forwards in NBA history. One of the GOAT wing defensive talents in NBA history too. Top 3 wing defender in NBA history, no doubt. One of the most versatile and impactful frames. Strong, fast, agile, lengthy as hell, high, terrific motor who could turn defense to offense continuously and hellaciously. Absolutely absurd. One of the best at just literally applying ball pressure to multiple perimeter archetypes because his frame was so versatile. And then again, offensively, one of the most reliable scorers that you could actually pick out of the 90s. Exceptional contact finisher at the rim. And again, he was highly vertically explosive, and he was also just powerful, and he had the length to be able to overcome defenders, like rim protectors' length. And transition, again, turning defense to offense, he was one of the best transition passing forwards, one of the best transition passes of his time, and he was just an absolute bullet and freight train himself as a scorer. And then he was a justifiable shot maker in space. So as a scorer, he was completely versatile as well. And again, this is considering his time when he was able to make pull-up jump shots to a decent degree. He's still able to make 33% of his threes, albeit low volume. Obviously, that the era called for that sort of low volume threes. Just supremely skilled, and he just harnessed that better than we've seen any sidekick ever do that for a prolonged time. Again, when Jordan came back, he just reverted straight back to what he was doing. And in terms of his peak as a sidekick, it's an 8-year range. And like we talk about guys like Dwayne Wade, 4-year range. Draymond Green, I could only really take a 4-year range. But Scottie Pippen was like, between 1990 and 1998, in terms of that entire range, he was probably a top 5 to 6 player that entire time. It's nearly a decade of NBA basketball as your second option. In the regular season, in that time, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists as a forward, 3.3 stocks, 51% effective field goal percentage. So very efficient for the time. But just think about the little diversity that he was impacting, even just the simple box score of things. In the playoffs as well, just the multiple ways he could impact the game. In the postseason, through 1990 to 1998, 8 years, he's still giving you 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3.1 stocks, 48% effective field goal percentage. Just absolutely amazing what Scotty did in his career. And there's a reason why I think he's at least around the top 20 to 22 players in NBA history. I've always taken him over Kawhi Leonard just because that peak of that floor and the ceiling that he offered teams in both regular season contexts and the postseason. Scotty's resume is just absolutely terrific to me. He never gets enough love. He probably will never get enough love for just how much he achieved. He's by far the greatest sidekick in NBA history, and it's completely undebatable. Now, thank you guys for listening to that one. That actually went for a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you guys would actually change out of that top 5, but just so you guys know, those are my 5 greatest sidekicks of the modern NBA. Appreciate you guys for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.